Ponies are excellent.
Excellent.
He specializes in minor seconds, yes. Yes, that's just how he not a tunester. And Bloch. And Schoenberg.
Ned Rorem is also a wonderful composer. And I feel a little schizophrenic. Well, I've been Gemini recording. Ned Rorem wrote a fun article about it. He said that I sound like none of my neighbors, but like a sophisticated cougar. I steal the best bass my own. So, okay. Don't we all learn from what John was saying, Mr. Brown was saying at the Masterclass the other day? We learn from everyone and everything. Sometimes I've learned more about piano playing by watching actors and good directors in the theater. And the theater is much harder than the cinema because a director, and let's face it, when we're playing the piano, we're directors. We have to direct where we want the audience's eyes and ears to go. We're directors. Which is a form of creation. Which is a form of creation. But I've learned more from watching directors and actors work on just that, following a melody. Following a melody. A theme, a motif, a thread that goes through a whole play, to act, to a scene.
Well, there are plots and subplots.
Yes, all equally, not equally important, but of all of importance. And you have to decide who you might sometimes you don't want to follow Hannah. You want to follow Claudius or Gertrude. Because the scene is about Claudius and Gertrude.
But is there a quality that you feel is distinctly American in, like, the music we're hearing today, other than the jazz rhythms of the Ravel?
I think the whole generation, two generations since World War II, has changed the way people compose. I think it's the first time that they're always accepted. I think it's the first time that people have been and have become just teachers without being performers. All the great composers in the past, and I think it's true in art too, have been performers. Mr. Schnabel, who John Brown quotes so often, said a wonderful thing. All people in music, if you're going to make a career in music, you should teach it, you should perform it, and you should compose it. All three. Doesn't mean you're going to do all three well, but you should have the experience what each arm of the musical experience goes through. What it takes to get those goddamn notes down on paper, and how difficult it is to make them. All that is a roadmap, as he said the other day. It's a roadmap. It doesn't tell you anything about it. There's the Grand Canyon, all the years are lying on that. You have to make me the Grand Canyon. All I've given you is a roadmap. All of you wonderful pianists. But I think it's the first time, and David Del Tredici is a wonderful example of, I don't know, David does teach. I think he teaches at Sarah Lawrence. I'm not sure.
Possibly.
I'm not sure. But since World War II, since 1945, there's been this whole 40 years 50 years. Do you realize since you did celebrate 50 years? Has been a situation where people can just live in an ivory tower, and it is an ivory tower. It can be an ivory tower. It does not have to be an ivory tower of a university, and really just compose. There is even, as part of the AMC, the American Music Center, a unit called the Alliance of American University Composers. Now, come on, you know, there are going to be university composers of the sophomore year, the junior year, the senior year. Come on! It's part of the total experience. It's part of the total experience. And I think an awful lot of American music, I don't know of any good piano music. And again, I'm sure there are exceptions. We can all cite them. I cannot think of any important piano music that has not been written by somebody who knows how to play the piano.
And certainly Barber knew how to play the piano.
Barber knew how to play the piano.
You play the piano.
I play the piano. Rora plays the piano. Aaron plays the piano.
Leonard Bernstein played the piano.
Oh, he played wonderful. Wonderful piano player. I think it is possible to write for almost any other instrument, perhaps not the guitar. But I think it's impossible. Some of the greatest violin concertos, of course, are written by people who never played the piano. The Brahms, the Tchaikovsky, the Beethoven, the three biggies. The Mendelssohn. Mendelssohn took everything that David, his violinist friend, set apart, and he incorporated it into the violin concerto.
Same thing with Brahms. I've seen the autograph of the violin concerto.
Yes, but Brahms
and
said.
Joachim's correctly to the last movement.
Yeah.
And Brahms picked one of them.
You see, but that again, we have to. What is Blanche's last line in the Streetcar Named Desire? I've always depended upon this kindness of strangers, which Tennessee himself said was the funniest line in American comedy. And she's being there, kookaburra bananas off the bad house, right? Always depend on the kindness of strangers. That you can, a chance comment that somebody can make, you can use the But I can't think, maybe some of you know of really important kind of music that has happened in our time. And so I think Americans, there are only two kinds of music, my darlings. Only two kinds. Good and bad. And we find it on every level.
Well, one of the things that Sam and Aaron talked about with me was that the old American piano music, the McDowell, Mrs. H.H.A. Beach, all of that, it was very lush, but it was very tame. It was totally unrelated to what was going on in Europe. I mean, the big trends that were going on in Europe were not part of that. Well, and all of a sudden, they felt that the Americans needed to catch up fast with what was going on in Europe, and that, you know, all of a sudden American music went from being a little bit sugary to being perhaps in need of a little more sugar.
Could be.
And that's...
But we have been so, I don't know, there's a certain, not smugness, Americans are pure in the background. But for instance, we were talking over breakfast of the Paris Exposition, where Debussy and Stravinsky, this is the Paris Exposition, the first time that one of the exhibits was a minstrel show, and it's the first time the French composer heard ragtime and a cakewalk. What do you find in Debussy? You start seeing ragtime and a cakewalk, and you see ragtime, and you see the jazz element and the piano. Camelot or Sonali was at that same exposition. So look at the Debussy family.
There are things in Petrushka that come straight from that.
Right from that.
Sure.
Right from that.
If any of you play Petrushka, it's the same. Yeah.
And so the whole thing, if you're interested in piano music, those of us who are Americans, either start playing it yourself as much as you can, or really absorb the piano playing of Oscar Peterson, the real great jazz, or Marion McPartland.
Big Partlet. Wonderful pianist.
These are fabulous fingers, and it's wonderful music making, and of course 95% of this extempore. But the thing of good music is bad music from the Victorian days to what is happening now. It's all relevant. It's music comedy, music rock, it's what I'm writing, or Forum is writing, or anybody is writing. 90% of it will vanish. 90% of it will vanish, as well it should. It is derivative, copycat, and not very interesting to begin with. It's that 10%, and we scream and yell about the elevated music and the prevalence of rock. This is rock, it's 10% of it. So I don't know, I'm talking about what a composer does rather than I don't know what makes an American composer. I guess of course I wasn't even born in America. I didn't live in America until I was 13, so I'm not an American composer. All composers should be pack rats, I think. Well, all pianists should be. You should say, my God, how does he or she make that sound? Or years ago when I was studying with Schoenberg, he said something about, and you will piano music. So it's on the level of Mr. Del going a step further. What he was saying, and of course he wrote, he wrote the songs are very rowdy. But Schoenberg was saying, as a teenager, he heard one of the last performances of Brahms. And Brahms, died in 96, 97. And,
maybe.
And so Schoenberg was like 14 or 15. He was born in 1880. And he said the amazing thing of Brahms playing, and he'd already, of course, was already studying music, is that Brahms did very little above the keyboard, or away from the keyboard. All the movement of he said it was amazing. It was like an oscillating fan. All the wrist motion was lateral. Well, you get a few of those nutty Brahms passages, and that helps.
It does help, right?
So you pick up and suddenly, when Schoenberg was talking about that, my God, as a pianist, I picked up on that. So I don't know what makes an American composer. You live in America and you have music. So that's it.
Thank you.
That's
good.